Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan, and so glad to have you along with us. What have you been up to since we last talked? What have you done? Where have you been? Anything fun? Anything exciting? Anything outdoors? What are you doing right now? Are you ice fishing? Maybe if you're up north, more likely open water fishing. Maybe you're doing some late season small game hunting. Maybe you're doing hunting crows. I got a buddy who hunts crows, and I think it's a fascinating topic, but he will not go on the show with me. He says, I don't want to talk to you on the air. I'll talk to you off the air all you want. I don't want to talk to you, Avery, on air. I don't want to talk about crow hunting. I just don't want to do it. I get it. Because when people talk to me, they end up talking to a lot of people, and he just doesn't want to do that. I get it. So what else? Maybe you're doing some shed hunting. I got a text from a buddy of mine the other day, and he said, I've always, because he's been out of town here on a wintertime vacation. He says, I've always suspected that while we're gone, the deer come up into the yard and they eat my shrubs. He said, now I have proof, and he sent me a picture of a shed. Now, a shed is a dropped whitetail antler. He sent me a picture of a shed in his window well, his basement window well. See, you don't have to go looking for sheds. They drop right there by your house, Scott. Shedding is an interesting sport, and people call whitetail antlers, they tend to call them horns. The distinction here is technically a horn doesn't drop. Cows have horns. They don't drop. Elk have antlers. Whitetails have antlers. Mule deer have antlers. Moose have antlers. It's one of the fastest growing things in Mother Nature. Think about this. From the springtime, when that new bone starts to grow till the fall, look at how big of a rack a moose or an elk grows in that time. And searching for those is a pretty cool wintertime activity. We used to bundle the kids up and take them out to the local nature center and search for sheds, and it was a riot. Okay, kind of on a weather roller coaster lately, haven't we? I mean, it was warm, and then it got cold, and we got some snow. Now it's supposed to get warm again, which is pretty much to be expected this time of year. I did find it was a great week for me. It was a successful week. I found my first dead skunk on the side of the road. Now, a lot of people had been reporting them, even sending me pictures, but I can't quite share in the experience fully by seeing your pictures. I had to go out and get my own. So I put the word out. I was looking for a skunk. A buddy of mine in law enforcement was on patrol. And he said, Avery, there's a dead skunk at such and such a location. So I went there, and sure enough, there was. And I took a picture of that. So thank you, Victor, for that. I do appreciate it. Also, thank you, my friends, for the old sayings you have been sending me. I talked about this last week. This is something I've been collecting over the years. I think it's important to continue these outdoor traditions, this connection with our past. And so I've had a lot of people send those to me. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. While I was out looking for a dead skunk on the side of the road, I did notice something. Have you seen all the deer lately? You're likely to see deer any time of day right now, obviously more in the morning, more in the evening, but even midday. And you won't see one deer right now. You'll see a herd of deer. In fact, when I see deer right now, I feel like I'm seeing every deer in this section. They're pretty social animals, and right now they're grouped up, they're herded up. And I just think it's pretty cool. How can I see so many deer right now as I'm driving down the road, and I couldn't see a doe during the hunting season to shoot? But that's another topic. But I will get revenge on you, Mother Nature, because turkey season is coming up. Fishing. I have been jonesing so bad to get out there. My angler quest is shrink wrapped at LInwood Beach Marina right now, so she's not coming out for a while. My son James was on Saginaw Bay yesterday. Got some real nice fish, beautiful fish. I really want to get up in the river and take advantage of that fishery. It's not going to close this year. When I look at that Saginaw Bay fishery, I look at it from a couple of perspectives. One of them just as an angler who loves it out there, but the other one as an outdoor observer who has been observing the Saginaw Bay walleye fishery since it was reestablished back in the early 80s. Now, Saginaw walleye are native to Saginaw Bay, but a long time ago, the population was pretty much decimated by over-harvesting by commercial fishermen. That can't happen these days now, right? And pollution and runoff and agricultural runoff. And look, you can't blame the people who did that back then because they were following practices that were accepted at the time. But we learned that what we were doing wasn't good for Mother Nature, changed those practices. Mother Nature cleaned up Saginaw Bay, and then with help from the DNR and sportsmen's groups around Saginaw Bay, who established walleye rearing ponds, where they took walleye fry, put them into those rearing ponds, grew them to, 2 or 3 inches where their survival rate would be better, and they dumped them around Saginaw Bay for a period of years. Between the DNR, sportsmen's groups, and Mother Nature, that fishery was reestablished. Interesting, in the early days, the DNR knew those fish were out there, but nobody was fishing for them. And the few people who were fishing for them didn't really know how to catch them. So I remember early on, and this is way back in the reestablishment of the Saginaw Bay walleye fishery. I was working in TV news at the time. The DNR got in touch with the Coast Guard and said, will you take some TV people and some media people and some newspaper people? Remember newspapers? They were something, it's a paper product, and it's got black writing on it, and we used to get them delivered to our house every day, and you would actually read them to get the news. I feel bad for people who are in the newspaper business. But they said, will you take these media people out in your, I don't know if it was a 41-footer or a 44-footer, up in the shallow water, what I now lovingly call the skinny water of Saginaw Bay, as the commercial fishermen had some trap nets up in there. They said, will you take these media people out there and show them that there are actually walleye there? So we went out in this Coast Guard cutter to watch the commercial fishermen pull their trap nets. And when they pulled them, they were absolutely full of walleye. Big walleye. You'll remember the early days in the reestablishment of the Saginaw Bay walleye fishery, how big the fish were. So the DNR's going, see, we told you it worked. We told you there were fish out there. Now, Saginaw Bay anglers, get out there and learn how to catch these fish. Now look at it. I think of the reestablishment of the Saginaw Bay walleye fishery as one of the greatest conservation success stories that I have seen in my lifetime, and certainly in recent history. Another thing that I consider to be a conservation success story, eagles. When I was a kid growing up, we never saw eagles. They weren't around. Now, look around. There are eagles everywhere. There are eagle nests everywhere. To the point where a few years ago when my grandkids were still, a little bit younger and they were in the back seat as we're driving around, I'd go, look, there's an eagle. There's an eagle's nest. They go, yeah, Grandpa, whatever. Because they see them all the time. It was no big deal to them. Even today, every eagle I see, it's a big deal. It's wonderful. It's a conservation success story. Man isn't always bad for Mother Nature. You'll have some people say, man is destroying this world. Man is doing nothing good for Mother Nature. Man is the source of all problems. No. Well, sometimes, yes. But we learn, we change those practices, and Mother Nature often rebounds. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine show after the break, Captain Jason Graham of Send Charters, also of LInwood Beach Marina. I want to talk to him about that Saginaw Bay walleye fishery, maybe a little bit about the river as well. Plus they're going to have an event coming up March 2nd. I want to talk to him about that. Speaking of events, Ben Nielsen of Showspan will also join me to talk about the Outdoorama event coming up. I think that's in Novi here, maybe next weekend already. In our second hour, Glen Duncan of Duncan's Outdoor Shop talks about the new gun laws we are now living with, and I'm going to say under, here in Michigan. A lot going on there. And Justin Tomei of MUCC will check in as well. Plus, this week's Ask Avery segment. In our third hour, we're going to head to Southern Lake, Michigan to talk about early season trolling with Russ Clark of Seahawk Charters. And, of course, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. I think it's going to be a good show. I'm so glad you're with us. My name is Mike Avery. This show is called Outdoor Magazine. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I'd love to hear from you. Don't hesitate to reach out. Let me know what's on your mind, what you like, what you don't like, what you want to hear about, and what you're sick of hearing about. More coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Lansing on WILS. That's 1320 AM. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM, 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette on WDMJ. That's 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by, what is it? There we go, Rapid River Knives. I had to get it out of my pocket. It wouldn't be a segment without that. I carry this Rapid River knife with me every day. I use it every day. I use it several times a day. I think a knife is one of the most valuable tools that a person can carry. And I like to carry a knife from Michigan-made, family-owned Rapid River Knife Works. They're custom-made. They're handmade by craftsmen in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. If you get a chance, go to their showroom on US 2, just east of Rapid River, and you will see what I mean. It's a beautiful place. If you can't get there, go to the website, rapidriverknifeworks.us. That's rapidriverknifeworks.us. And you can order a knife. You can have it engraved and guaranteed for life. You can get it sharpened, repaired. Good way to go. Very good way to go. I like working with family-owned, Michigan-based companies that are staffed and owned by good, quality, solid people. And I've been blessed to work with a lot of companies like that, including the folks at LInwood Beach Marina, LInwoodBeachMarina.com. Captain Jason Graham is a charter captain who works out of LInwood Beach Marina and with LInwood Beach Marina. His website for his Send It Charters is senditcharters.com. The website for LInwood Beach Marina is LInwoodBeachMarina.com. And Jason Graham is with me this week on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Cap, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing real good, real good. Listen, my son James and his buddy Mike Smith were out there fishing the other day. They said, hey, we finally ran into Jason and had a chance to meet him. And they said, what a good guy he is. I said, hey, guys, all along I've been saying, Jason Graham is a great guy and a great fisherman, Jason. You have become known on the Bay as a very technical, precise, detail-oriented, and very good fisherman.
Well, I appreciate that, Mike. Thanks for the kind words.
Jason, what's going on out there on Saginaw Bay right now?
Right now, there's no ice. Right now, the ice, and I hate to say it that way, but the ice is gone. And I'm not sure we're going to get it back with the weather we got in the forecast. Right now, we're launching boats, and the guys are getting out, and there's some great catches, some big fish being caught right now. And it's cold. Don't get me wrong. It's just like ice fishing. When you have to go out there, it's gear up with everything you got, hats, gloves, and some guys even wearing helmets just to make sure their ears stay cold and face stays warm and to get out there. But the bite is on, so it's a good time to catch them right now for sure.
Isn't it interesting that, in the old years, in a good year right now, the guys would be out there on the ice. There'd be a foot of ice out there. Now we're trolling out there. Has the fishery changed that much in the last few years, or is it just the conditions Mother Nature is throwing at us that we've had to deal with?
It's kind of a combination of both. For the last 2 seasons, there's been very, very little ice fishing. So there's a lot of fish that were saved by not having the ice fishermen on the ice all winter. That to me brings a lot more opportunity for the guys using boats this time of year. And it's the spring fishery. A lot more fish make it to the winter to go up and spawn and do their native things. So it's a combination of that, and the fact is the water's also getting cleaner. We don't have the dirty water like we used to. The water's clearing up. They're trying to forage for food. A lot more activity with the live forage, minnows, shad, all that kind of stuff that the fish are feeding on is more readily available for these fish with the water's cleaning up.
Yeah, you talk about not having ice fishermen out there to pound on the fishery, the population. Yet we've got these guys up the river right now, and with the river open year round, and they're knocking the snot out of fish up there.
They are lots of areas too. They're not just the river mouth. They're way up by the Z Bridge. They're by the battleship, the river mouth. All areas have fish. You need to go to the area that you want to catch. The keepers is the biggest thing. There's guys catching 100, 150 fish a day, and that do some important. There's also guys catching 50 fish a day that are catching pretty much keepers every time they drop down. So spend some time, do some homework, and then find the active fish at the size limit that you want to keep and catch.
Jason, do walleye tend to school in fish of the same size?
Typically, yes. They'll have a time when the spawning is going on. They'll be mixed pretty good, but for the most part, the buck males are up there in a big pot of fish, and the females are behind them in the river scenario. It's also the same way in the bay. If you're out here catching a lot of short fish in an area where you're trolling, if you caught 5 or 6 or 8 fish in a row and they're all short, I would move. Because most of the time, those are all a small pot of fish. You might be able to drop down deeper and catch some keeper fish, but for the most part, I'd move a mile or two and find out where those fish are in the keeper size adjacent to the small fish.
Where are you fishing this time of year? Are you hitting the same spots we do in the summertime?
Yes and no. The biggest thing is you got to find where the fish are. These fish are going to move. Right now, these fish are staging to go up the river and on the reefs to spawn. So they're putting the feed bag on right now. They're not ready to spawn. Even though the weather says it's warm, it's time to go. Mother Nature, has a time clock on them. That March is typically when they're going to spawn because the eggs aren't ready to go out anyway. So even though we got some warm water, it's going to dictate by the water temperature and that kind of stuff. But they're getting ready to do their migration to the reefs, and these fish are piled up. So if you find a pot of fish, don't leave them. You might find a pot of fish the size of a basketball court. You might find a pot of fish the size of a football field. If you find that and you go through an area and get 5 or 6 bites, spin back around and go back through them again because there's a whole pot of fish that are ready to bite.
So not all these fish now are running the rivers to spawn. We've got reef spawners out there?
Absolutely, we do, yes.
So what's your technique? I mean, you leave LInwood Beach. Are you going to a known spot, or are you running out there and looking for fish on the way out, or what?
I do both. This time of year, you might be the first guy out. You might, right now, the launch just opened up on Saturday here at the marina, and we've had some boat traffic go out, and you get some phone calls and get a network of guys you talk to. But if you're the first guy out and you have no clue, the best thing is to drive around at 20, 25 miles an hour, watch electronics, and find the pot of fish even before you start fishing. The first thing, Lance Valentine's a good friend of mine, another captain of mine, and he says the very first thing you want to find is make sure there's fish there. You can have the right color, the right depth, the right speed. If there's no fish there, you're not going to get bit. So the first thing you need to do is find these fish first, and then worry about setting lines and getting the depths and that kind of stuff. The areas, a lot of times they're in the same areas, but these fish are shallow, where there's guys fishing in 4 to 5 to 7 foot of water. There's guys fishing from 12 to 15 foot of water. There's fish out in 20, 25 foot of water. So it all depends on what area you want to fish. If you feel more comfortable fishing shallow, by all means, do all your searching shallow. But then step out a little bit, go a little deeper. If you feel more comfortable putting long leads out and running big baits real deep, well, by all means, start out deeper. But make sure you find fish before you start putting lines in the water.
If you're cruising at 20 miles an hour marking fish, you got to have the right transducer, and it's got to be set up just right.
Absolutely. And the biggest thing is what people don't understand is it's just going to be a straight line vertical on your graph when you mark that fish. It won't be an arch, because the way that the transducer sends that signal down, and it makes like a big V. The faster you go, the bigger the V gets. And you're only going to mark that fish once on the transducer as it sends a beam down to the bottom and back up. As you go slow, the arch gets wider and longer. As you go faster, the arch gets real close together, becomes a vertical line. When you see that vertical line, the other thing you can find is you also find the actual depth. If you idle over that fish, you're going to find out that fish want to drop down 5 or 6 feet because of the boat motor noise. So it's actually better to find them at speed, figure out the depths, than put those lures above their heads when you're actually running the boat, not idling over the top of their heads.
Are you using your side scan too?
Side scan, absolutely. The thing about the side scan is you can't use it at speed. You won't turn the side scan on until you actually drop it off a plane and idle down. The technology knows I haven't found a way to have mine running at speed yet where actually it will read side imaging and be clear enough to read it. So I use my 2D sonar to find fish at speed. Once I slow down, turn my side imaging on, and typically my number I use in my head is 16 foot of water. 16 foot of water and less, my side imaging is always on. Anything deeper than that, typically I go to my 2D or down imaging transducer to read the fish, 17, 18, 20 foot of water, because the cone gets big enough you can read the fish below the boat.
You mentioned clear water, cleaner water. Are the fish spookier then? Can they see? Does it make them spookier? Do you have to fish them differently than the muddier midsummer water?
Yeah, yes and no. These fish will gang up in the muddier water. The water's actually usually warmer too in the muddy water. The sunlight gets down there, heats the water a little bit more. There's more bait fish in the area, but they're also scattered more in the water column. In that clear water, they tend to figure out the exact depth they want between the bottom and the surface, and they all tend to hang out within a 3 foot span, give or take. The other thing is keep your lines out wider. Offshore planer boards make a great product. You'll wear 12 planer boards. Get them boards out as far as you can to the side with the clear water, and keep them baits, the motors from spooking the boat, or spooking the fish, and motors spooking the fish, and keep the boards out farther outside the boat.
Man, how many fish have been caught over the years on those offshore OR-12s?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely the number one product here on the bay for us, for sure.
What speed are you trolling at? What baits are you using?
Right now, I'm with the water temperature between 32 and 35 degrees, depending where you're at in the lake. I run big bandits. I run big husky jerks, the Spurl Mad Eye 120s, and the new PWC, the Bill Lewis crankbait, precise walleye crankbait. Roman Axe have given me a couple baits to try, and I'm telling you what, these baits they're new. The colors are great. They're got big hooks on them, and these walleye are chomping on them for sure.
Actually, we had Mark on the show last week, and he was telling me now they have a smaller too, the PWC Light or smaller, whatever. Yeah, yep. So I'm looking forward to using those in the summertime too. Yeah,
they're about the same size as a number 9 minnow or number 9 thicker minnow. Yep. So and it's going to be a killer for sure.
So, Jason, do you go up in the river at all, or are you strictly a bay guy?
I do both, but typically what's going on with me in the river is there's boat traffic. Trying to get guys, 4 or 5 guys in a boat to jig and be consistent is okay to do. If by chance we get a blow day, that's where I'm going to go. But if I get out here in the water and run my 12 or 14 rod spread and get 3 lines apiece for my customers in the water, that's what I can do, because I control the way the fish are caught and I control the way we're fishing. It's much easier for me to run 12 or 14 rods with customers than it is to try to teach somebody to jig with a boat full of people.
I know the ice fishermen are not happy right now, but for a guy like you, isn't it nice to have these options where you can go up the river, you can go in the bay? I mean, it's a great fishery.
Absolutely. It's miles and miles and miles. You go from Auguray to Bay City to Caseville, and it's, if the wind's blowing the wrong direction from where you're at, drive around the other side and fish that side, because the wind will allow you to fish the other side of the bay.
We're talking with Captain Jason Graham of Send It Charters, senditcharters.com. Jason also works with LInwood Beach Marina, linwoodbeachmarina.com. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, I want to talk with Jason about an upcoming event that they have. I think it's coming up Saturday, March 2nd. You can go downstate for these shows, which are wonderful, Outdoorama and fishing shows and such. Or maybe there's one in your backyard, and I think that's what LInwood Beach Marina is going to do. We'll talk about that. And at the end of the hour, speaking of those downstate shows, Ben Nielsen of Showspan will join me to talk about the big Outdoorama show coming up. In our second hour, Glen Duncan on the new gun laws we're dealing with here now in Michigan, and Justin Tomei of MUCC. So lots more coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK. That's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in, let's go to Taos, WIOS, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And let's go north of the bridge. Let's go to Escanaba, WCHT, 600 AM, 93.5 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Killer Food Plots. Now, I know you're not putting in food plots right now, but it's not going to be long. I mean, it's certainly time to start thinking about it, right? If you're thinking about food plots, if you're thinking about improving your habitat, I want you to think about Michigan-based family-owned Killer Food Plots. Their website is killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. And I keep saying this. I got to make myself a note. Get Rich Krazan on the show to talk about this, to be thinking about what you're going to do differently. What worked for you last year? What didn't work? Well, now is the time to start thinking about it because you're going to be putting seeds in the ground. I'm not saying tomorrow. I'm not saying next week, but it's not going to be that long now. KillerFoodPlots.com. I'm talking now with Captain Jason Graham of Send It Charters out of the LInwood Beach Marina. Jason, there's an event coming up here in March. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, on March 2nd, we're doing our second annual boating and fishing forum, and it's basically a roundtable type discussion. We have some captains come in, Captain Mark Pianzak, Captain Jeff Godey, Captain Bobby Sullivan with Icebreaker Charters, and myself. We'll do a roundtable type discussion and talk about everything you could think about as far as Saginaw Bay and trolling and jigging the river. The first couple hours, we're going to talk about trolling motors, kicker motors, lithium batteries, autopilot, stuff like that. If you're thinking about rigging your boat up for the season, or what the difference is between the two, or how can I get my trolling motor to last longer, or batteries, that'll be the first couple hours of discussion. And well, safety. You know, people don't realize how much safety equipment you need to have on your boat for requirements, but it's always good to have more and be safe on the water to get yourself or your family safe as you're fishing. Second part of the program is going to be electronics, and the big thing now is forward-facing sonars, and that is a huge draw for us as far as sales here at the marina. Guys want to have those Garmin's and Lowrance and Humminbird 360 imaging, live scopes, that kind of stuff on these boats, and I've got to come up with a way myself to actually use it for trolling, and it's a new thing we can show these customers what's actually out there, how we can utilize this, how we can cast and seal lures and that kind of stuff. And it seems to be a big question for everybody that's trying to get involved with it. Sees it on TV, you know, the Bassmaster guys are all using it and win these big tournaments. Well, there's also a procedure we can do for trolling and jigging for walleye in the Great Lakes as well. And the last part of the day is going to be, 2 o'clock or so. We're going to talk about everything you think about for as far as trolling-wise, lines, lures, planer boards, any way to set up your rods and reels, line calibration. The Precision Trolling Data app is huge. One of the things we talk about is the guys they're confused on sometimes calibrating their reels. So we're actually going to walk through the process and actually do a couple reels here in-house and show the guys how easy it is and why you need to do it to make your Precision Trolling Data app equal the lure depths you have in the water. Basically, have a big get-together, ask questions. If you have a question about your boat, have a question about your equipment, have a question about your rods and reel setups or what to use or hooks or baits, we're going to be here all day. There'll be several captains involved. If you think about booking a charter with somebody, you can come in and talk to the guys. There'll probably be 10 or 15 captains here, all this part of this discussion, and be able to walk through, hey, what do you have on your boat, and how can I help me learn how to use that product that you use already? And just, basically a big discussion and a big get-together for us at the marina.
It's Saturday, March 2nd. What time does it start?
Doors open at 9. We'll probably start our forum about 10 o'clock. Each segment will probably be 2 hours. We have some door prizes. Offshore Tackle has been a sponsor of ours. They're going to have some products here at the doors. Frank's Great Outdoors has got some adult tackle package we have for door prizes. And we also have LInwood Party Store. Some guys have donated some baits to tackle. So sign up, register at the front door. No cost to anybody. Free of charge. Come and go as you please. We'll probably have some lunch of some type to keep everybody occupied throughout the day, lots of room. And we'll have, like I said, we'll have all types of open discussion, not necessarily a seminar per se, but yet be informative. But anytime you have questions, by all means, ask the questions, and there's no such thing as a bad question. So,
well, you bring up this forward-facing electronics. That's a big question I have. I can't wait to see how you guys come up with, a way to use that in a trolling scenario. I got to believe there's a way to do it, but I don't see it yet. But I know guys like you can come up with it, Jason.
We have it. We're actually doing installs on boats now and putting plugs in the front and back of the boat. And if you do the little arm or a pole setup like we have with a track system, you can actually mount it to the back of the boat. And I've actually been on my boat and another customer's boat we have here. We can actually look out to the side of the boat under the pointer boards and see 3 crankbaits swimming through the water and watch these walleye come up and bite the baits before the board goes back.
Oh, that sounds like fun. And you mentioned those lithium batteries. Is that the way to go now?
It is. If you're trying to get long-term use out of your trolling motors, and that's what the big questions are. Do I need to get a bigger battery so I can troll all day, or should I go to a kicker motor where I have more use of putting gas in a little motor versus rolling batteries? So we can answer those questions. Lithium batteries are a great product. We actually have one, Iconic, as a battery we're selling here at the marina. We have a 12-volt, 125 amp hour with a built-in heater in it. And what that'll do is actually preheat the battery to 40 degrees before it starts taking a charge. So our diehard guys that fish all winter and their boats are stored outside, lithium doesn't like the cold. But with the chargers nowadays, with a charger setting and lithium setting, it'll actually preheat that battery with a computer chip in the battery to 40 degrees before it takes a charge.
Wow. Pretty sophisticated stuff. Captain Jason Graham of Send It Charters, LInwood Beach Marina. Always a pleasure to talk with you. Sounds like a fun event. Have fun. Good fishing to you, and we'll talk again.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mike.
Jason Graham, Send It Charters, senditcharters.com, LInwoodBeachMarina.com. That's coming up Saturday, March 2nd. It's before our Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction. So you could have a big day. You could do both. Ben Nielsen of Showspan after the break. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WBCK in Battle Creek. That's 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on the Twister, 92.1 WTWS. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on News Talk 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by my buddy Matt Smith Outdoors. Matt is a longtime friend of mine. He's an expert at finding recreational properties, vacation homes. He can help your family turn a dream into a reality. Learn more online at Matt Smith Outdoors. He's on Facebook and he's on Instagram. And by the way, if you're looking for a new home as your primary residence, Matt can help you out there as well. Again, that's Matt Smith Outdoors on Facebook and on Instagram. Talking in the previous segment with Captain Jason Graham of the LInwood Beach Marina on a show that they're having Saturday, March 2nd. But if you want to look at the bigger scale shows, you want to talk to our friends at Showspan. Showspan, the leader in these outdoor recreational lifestyle type shows. And there's a big one coming up. Ben Nielsen is along to talk more about that. Ben, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I am doing great because it's a busy time of year. It's an exciting time of year. And you guys there at Showspan, I know, just keep plugging away at it.
We do, one after another, right? You know, that's what we do, and we love it, you know. And so we're super excited to get Outdoorama going. Okay,
that's what I was waiting for. Whether you said Outdoorama or Outdoorama, because I always say Outdoorama.
Well, if you wait a second, I may say it the other way.
Okay.
Talking here. So, you know, I do tend to flip-flop back and forth a little bit.
This show, though, has a lot of history. Of course, for many years, MUCC put this show on, and I think they'd be the first to admit that it's not in their wheelhouse. So when they moved it over to you guys at Showspan, I think the show improved dramatically.
Well, you know, thank you for that. And, you know, obviously we still work, you know, hand in hand with MUCC. We're a conservation partner with them and have a very close relationship. We love everything about them. And, you know, so obviously they still are at the show, have a large part as an exhibitor in the show, and it's a great relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me about this show coming up, Ben.
Well, we got a lot of things, right? So, I would say the biggest thing starting off, Big Buck Night, right? Taped for Michigan Out of Doors Television. We're going to have our Big Buck Night East on Thursday night. Jimmy and Jenny will be down there sharing some stories of some of the successful hunters from this past year. That's another Michigan tradition thing that we're looking forward to. And then, obviously we've got our lumberjacks back again this year. That's always a great deal. Obviously Saturday we've got our deer processing demo, which really is kind of a unique deal where, we actually bring a deer in legally and, do a start to finish processing seminar. And that's done by the great people over at Country Smokehouse. Along with so many other things to list, we'll run out of time here.
So how is it different than your ultimate fishing shows then?
Yeah, so the fishing show really is specifically on fishing. We dive, deep all the way in there, but really doesn't have anything to do with hunting. In the Outdoorama show, see, there I did it.
There.
So the Outdoorama show, is really more a celebration of the outdoors. So it's hunting, it's fishing, backpacking, really all of our great love for the outdoors. It has much more of a focus on hunting. A lot more outfitters at this show, different hunting trips, things like that. And so where fishing show doesn't have as much with hunting, this show does have a lot more with hunting, although there is still some fishing there as well.
Are there fishing boats at the show?
Absolutely. We're going to have a great display of boats again this year. That's been an area that's been tough because, well, quite frankly, there weren't boats to buy.
Mm-hmm.
They were taken. But we've gotten inventory levels back, and so we will have a really good fishing boat display there this year as well.
Give me the details on the show, please, Ben.
Yes, absolutely. We open up on Thursday, February 22nd at 1 o'clock. We do have the free Daredevil fishing lures for the first 250 people there. Obviously, we go all the way through Sunday. Admission is $12. All these details, which I would forget if I was listening, just go to Outdoorama.com. Everything is there. You can check everything out. Outdoorama.com.
That's Outdoorama.com. You mentioned Daredevil. Boy, what a great Michigan company that is. They've been around forever.
Absolutely, they have. And we've got a great partnership with them on that. And, these spoons they're the collector's item, I tell you. I've got every year back to, I think it's 2008.
Wow.
I haven't been along super long, but I've got them all displayed up in my office, and got, all the spoons there, and people collect them. It's really a cool thing.
Well, and speaking of being around for a while, Outdoorama's got quite a history too. I mean, long time now.
51st year.
51st.
Yeah, we're in our 51st year.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, Ben, keep up the good work. I will send people to Outdoorama.com. That's Outdoorama.com. You have a good show, and we'll talk again.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Ben Nielsen of Showspan. Showspan.com, or if you want to learn about all their shows, or if you want to look specifically at Outdoorama, go to Outdoorama.com. That's Outdoorama.com. There, we got the definitive answer. It's Outdoorama. Or maybe it's Outdoorama. No, it's Outdoorama. Outdoorama.com. We'll take a break here for the top of the hour. When we come back in hour number 2, we're going to switch gears a little bit. We've been kind of on a fishing conversation here for the most part. We're going to talk about something a little bit more serious, and that is the new gun laws that went into effect here in Michigan here this last week. What does this mean for us as hunters and shooters and gun owners? How does this change the process of selling guns or giving guns to our family members? It's quite a big deal. Glen Duncan of Duncan Outdoors will talk about that. Then Justin Tomei of MUCC checks in. And in our third hour, we're going to head to Southern Lake, Michigan for some early season coho fishing and, of course, wild game chef Dixie Dave Minar. That's all coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Welcome. Thank you, by the way, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations. And I am firmly convinced the best way to listen to the show, if you can, is on your local radio station, your local AM or FM Outdoor Magazine radio affiliate. If you can't, if your local station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, or if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, there is a podcast version of the show that is available. You can hear the podcast version on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's on my Facebook page. It's on Amazon Music. It's on Audible. It's on Twitter. It's on LinkedIn. It's on Apple Music. It's on Google Play. It's on iHeartRadio. It's on SoundCloud. It's on Spotify. It's on TuneIn. It's on Stitcher. It's on Player FM. It's on Deezer. It's on Odyssey. And it's even on YouTube. Yes, I put the audio, the sound version of the radio show on YouTube, and every week people tune into it. I do like podcasting, though. I mean, sometimes you might think I don't. What I'm trying to do is just make the distinction between the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, well, not millions, the many, many outdoor-related podcasts that are out there. And some of them are really, really good. But there just aren't many outdoor radio shows. And I am one of them, and I am proud to be one of them. But anyway, I do like podcasting. I love podcasting. I embrace it. And each month I do podcasts for some of my broadcast partners, or some of my advertising partners. In fact, last week, I recorded a conversation with Bruce DeShano of Offshore Tackle for the Offshore Tackle podcast. I talked to Bruce about the early days of the company, about his background, how he started Offshore Tackle with just one product, a downrigger release, and he grew it into what it is today. So that's going to be a multi-part conversation. You can hear that on their website, offshoretackle.com. That's offshoretackle.com. Okay, so what is in the news right now? A lot of things going on in our great state of Michigan. This past week, some new gun laws went into effect. Now, this show is not a political show. It's not, I'm not looking to argue politics, but I am interested in how these new gun laws will affect us as hunters and shooters. Glen Duncan of Duncan's Outdoor Shop in Bay City is a guy who is plugged into this world. Glen grew up in the shooting world. He's very, very active in the political world as far as how it affects us as hunters and shooters, and I thought he'd be a good guy to talk to about this topic, and he graciously has granted us some time, and he's with us on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Glen, welcome back. How are you?
Great. Thank you very much. Yes, it's been an exciting week.
Exciting is a word.
Actually, for the last couple of months, working with the different legislative people and stuff, and trying to get the wording and the wording changes every day. It seems like it's been for the last month and that, but it's been strange, very strange is all I can say.
I feel, Glen, like this almost came out of nowhere. It's like I didn't hear anything about it, and the next thing I heard, okay, there's a gun laws in the works, and then it was passed.
You're pretty much right. And I'm with you 100%. We're not going to talk politics at all. We're going to talk about the law, and because the politics side is just too much involved in it. And so we have a law that we have to work with, and our governor did hurry up and get it through and push the red flag law and storage laws, and at least she gave you a tax break on buying safety products, and we can talk about that. But all these laws are not as strong as if you want gun legislation. This is not very much gun legislation wise. It's just a lot of complicated mess for everybody to work with.
So there are multiple parts. There's the red flag law, there is the storage law, and then there are also components about selling guns, right? So it's a multi-part deal.
Right. Very true. You got that part right.
So let's break it down as much as we can. The red flag is the one that deals with people who are having emotional issues, mental challenges?
Oh, any kind of challenges that would put them in jeopardy of doing harm to themselves or to other people is the best way to describe it. And so if you think that somebody's doing harm or could do harm and stuff, it has to go through a judge, and that's a good thing that a judge is going to be brought into this to make this decision of your guns being taken away. The sad parts of that is how it's going to be taken away. It's really not clear if how the police are going to be able to do it and do it safely for the policemen and safely for the families and stuff. Because some people, when you're asked to give up rights and stuff and give up something, they get even more upset. So that's going to be a challenge. That part of the red flag law. The other part of the red flag law the police departments don't have room for a bunch of guns, and they're supposed to take these guns and store them at their police agency. Later in the writing of the law, they added into if a judge wants to get a group of dealers together and let dealers take them. The bad part is you're not supposed to charge nothing for the storage of these guns of these people that are having problems. So where am I going to put a bunch of guns myself and store them? And then on top of it, if you decide or somehow it decides that you'll never get the guns back because of something, and then you got to go back to the court, and the court's then got to make a decision, can I sell these guns? And before, if you had a crime and you needed to get rid of your guns to pay your attorney or pay fees and stuff, it was very easy for you to sign off and say, hey, sell my guns. And they didn't give us any latitude on that yet, and so we're waiting to find out how and what it's going to take if you do need to get rid of them, how we're going to go and get rid of them properly.
Well, obviously, nobody wants guns in the hands of somebody who's having mental issues. I mean, that's just common sense. But my question is, like, if you had an ex-spouse or somebody going through a divorce and there was a vendetta and they had ulterior motives, could they then contact the cops or the court or whoever and say, look, this person is having mental problems, he shouldn't have guns? And it wasn't true. They were just trying to get back at you, trying to be mean.
Right. And that's where the judge is supposed to be the clear brain that's supposed to see through that. But it's hard for a judge to sit back and say, I'd rather take this. He's going to probably 90% of the time take the other side and say, well, it's probably safer for us just to remove the guns right now and worry about it later. Well, that makes it hard because if it's what the case you just described, well, there's many cases where people are going to get a divorce and about 3-4 years later they're married again and back together again, and he wants his guns back, and it's like he can't get them back, and because he has this still hanging over his head, and then now it becomes another problem for a marriage again. And so nothing was written, and our problem is our laws are written to do something, but they're not written to go and protect us for the future. And that's really important. Whenever they write a law, they need to have some restrictions on it, and when can this happen? Now, they did do a little bit of that on some of the legislation, and what's really strange is, and it's scary, and it's not clear yet, but if you a bunch of different things where you'd never get your guns back before, now they're saying time will let it, and after 8 years, everything's forgotten, everything's forgiven, and so we're trying to see how that's going to work out and where that's going to, if that's going to stay in effect or they're going to lose that in court. And everything's in court. I mean, like, everything that you do anymore, somebody's on the other side trying to sue you for something and trying to get it cleared up or changed in court. The good part. Let's go over the good part for a minute.
Okay, hold on. So there is a good part?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, let's hear about it.
Okay. This project I started 4 years ago, trying to get our legislated people to go, because other states have this, is a tax-free safe week or tax-free month. And our governor was totally against it because you're talking about not collecting taxes on something. And the idea was that if you bought a smoke detector for your house, it was tax-free for a period of time to get people out buying safety products. The last minute, the governor threw on and said, we're going to give you between now and the end of the year, any item that you buy, a safe, a gun lock, something that has a padlock or a lock on it, you can get it tax-free right now.
Oh.
Until December 31st. So that's a good one. That was in, and that was nobody. It was like she was against it, and all of a sudden, oh, let's do it, and let's do it for our home the rest of the year.
Wow.
So,
well, if you were buying something
amazing.
like a gun safe, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, when you got a $900 safe and there's no taxes on it.
Yeah,
but
I like
it's till
that.
the end of the year, and so that's a good thing that happened out of this. The legislative people are working on it before, and all of a sudden it's done, and it's like, okay.
All right, we'll take it. Glenn, listen, hang tight. We've got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. We're talking with Glen Duncan of Duncan's Outdoor Shop in Bay City. The website, duncansoutdoor.com. That's duncansoutdoor.com. Glenn has a real good handle on all of this stuff. After the break, when we come back, I want to talk with him about a couple of things. Number one, this concept of storing guns. Obviously, we all want to store guns safely. But when they start putting mandates on there, and what are the implications there? And then what if I want to sell my son a gun? Well, more after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Carroll on WKYO 1360 AM. You can also hear us there on WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM. And north of the bridge in the Yoop, Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Premier Maritime Training. If you've ever wanted to get your captain's license, I think it's your best bet. Captain John Littlefield taught my captain's class, and he helped this old guy with an old brain get through the class and pass the Coast Guard exam. I'm now a licensed charter captain, and I thank Captain John Littlefield for that. And I think he can help you become a licensed captain as well. If you go to his website, which is pmtcaptains.com, that's pmtcaptains.com, you can learn more. John has classes across the state, and I'm sure you can find one that fits your schedule. This is a bucket list thing for you if it's something you always want to do if you're getting ready for the future. pmtcaptains.com, a really great place, pmtcaptains.com. Tell John Littlefield that Captain Avery sent you that direction. Talking right now with Glen Duncan of Duncan's Outdoor Shop in Bay City about these new gun laws that went into effect this last week here in Michigan. I again, from my perspective, I feel like they kind of came out of the blue and boom, they were passed, but they're here now and we've got to deal with them. Okay, Glenn, so let's talk about what is involved in these new laws for storage. Obviously, we all want to store our guns safely, and I'd like to think we're all doing it, all responsible gun owners anyway. But what is required legally now under the law?
Now that if anyone under 18 years old is in your house, you must have the gun stored and properly locked. If anyone under 18 gets your guns, they're really going to punish you big time. There's bunch of different levels that they're talking about but it's already in effect that the law is passed, but some things are still got to be cleared on the law exactly what the punishment's going to be. But they're looking for felonies and everything else. It's big.
So is this if somebody under 18 resides in the house, or if they are there even visiting?
Visiting even. If your grandkids come over, the kids have their friends over. Anywhere, anyhow, under 18-year-old person is in your house, you are responsible. And what's scary about this one is that, do you hide your keys? Do you go and there's so many things that's around a house that's dangerous that kids get hurt with and stuff and killed. And so this is, I think, going to be just the beginning of protecting kids.
Well, we all want to protect kids. You know, when you frame something from that perspective, we just want to protect kids. How can you argue with that, Glenn?
You can't at all. But the thing is that nobody's perfect in this world. And the other day, this just made me madder than hell. A guy was on drugs, shot somebody, and got off it because he's on drugs. because they can't get him for not being able to maintain himself. And so it scares me what legislation's going on and how if you got a pool in your backyard, you put a fence up, you do everything possibly you can to protect your kids. You got a trampoline, you put the skirting around it, you do everything you can. But we're just opening a can of worms that really scare me for our trying to raise kids.
Well, again,
It's a battle.
Thank you. It is a battle. You know, you look at some of these things and you say, well, I get it. And I can, conceptually, you can't argue with the premise behind it. But the real premise behind it, I honestly believe, and I don't want to get too political, but there are people in control who would like this just to be the first step of many steps, I believe.
Right. Very true. This always is. And so.
Let's talk about the transfer of guns here now, too, because this could affect me personally and a lot of people listening to the show personally. What's new there?
Yes. Well, and what's really sad is that I just had a couple of my staff members, and we went to a meeting in Jackson, Michigan with ATF, and the last minute, the state police decided to show up to the meeting and tell us what these new laws are. The state police has really not sent nothing out to anybody. Were you able to go on their website and pick up laws and stuff, but as them giving us and feeding us the information, they don't want to do that. It's really bad. They weren't going to go to the meeting that they had a couple weeks ago with the ATF, and I called and I talked to the head dog at Michigan State Police, and he's going, yeah, we're going to go now, and that's not the attitude you really want when you got laws that working with dealers that need to protect ourselves. I mean, that's we live with laws every day of the week, and we need to know what the new law is and how to interpret the new law and how to use the new law. And so it's in that meetings that we had. One of the biggest things is that you're going to hear so many times, and I just got document skinned today. If you go into a gun shop, they, by federal law, have to do a background check on you. Yes, years ago, if you had a CPL, you didn't need it done because your CPL was done properly and the federal government accepted the NICS people that do the background checks, accepted Michigan CPL. After many years, they studied Michigan CPL and how they're doing the background checks and everything else. We lost that right about 4 years ago. So you come in the gun shop, I've got to do a background check on you, even if you have a CPL, because of the state doing a poor job on doing background checks. We had a guy that was a 7-time felon out of Texas that got a CPL. Every year we get 2 or 3 people that have CPLs that are denied through the feds. And so they kept telling in the paperwork you still read that says if you have a CPL, we don't have to do a background check. No, by federal law, we have to, and they have not changed that, and they have not upgraded that at all yet. So don't get upset with gun shops when they do another background check, when you just got a purchase permit and they're supposed to have done a background check. We have to do a federal background check. So I just want to get that covered right off the bat.
Okay. All right. I accept that. I appreciate that. So how does this all affect us? Now, say I want to, I can give a gun to my son, right?
No. Your son is number one. If your son over 18 years old, he's over 18 years old, he needs to go down and get a purchase permit. And this is the dumbest part. Okay, you got a shotgun. You're going to give it to your son. He's over 18 years old. He's going to go down and get a purchase permit. He's going to bring that purchase permit to you, and you're going to go and sign it. It would classify as a seller. He's the purchaser, and so he's going to sign it. Now it's your responsibility to take that purchase permit back to the right police department. That has become going to be the biggest headache for all of us, is trying to figure out what department did you get it from and what's their address so you can send it back to them.
Is this new, or has this always been the case?
No, this is new, and I just made a mistake. I just totally made a mistake again, and I'll tell you where I made a mistake is. When he got the purchase permit, we're talking about a long gun, and this is really complicated. We got long guns and we got handguns. all long guns are rifle shotguns. We call those long guns, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And before you had a pistol purchase permit, now you have a firearm purchase permit. So it doesn't matter because now all guns have to go and have paperwork filled out. Now we're going to go back to your son, and I'm sorry I made
No,
mistake.
that's all right.
Your son is buying your shotgun from you, or you're giving your son the shotgun. He's going to go down and get a permit to buy. You're going to sign it. He's going to sign it. You're not going to do nothing with the police copy. They don't care about it. They don't want to register the gun. They don't want knowledge of the gun. All they want to know is your son might have got a gun, and that permit that he's got was good for 30 days. At the end of 30 days, it just vaporizes and goes away. So we didn't do nothing if we talk about where, and that's one of the biggest things. So it's not registration. It is keeping track of who might be buying guns. Is what all they're doing. If we have a handgun is more like the old days, where if you have a handgun, you're going to give it to your son or sell it to your son. He's over 18 years old. Yes, he's going to get a permit to buy. You're going to sign it. He's going to sign it. The new part is you are the seller. You must take it back to the police department. And their idea was that if the seller would be more likely to make sure it got back to the police department because he wants it off his records. And so that was their theory, and that why they moved it from the purchaser that would come into the gun shop, buy it, and then he'd take it back down and register it. They've now got it so the seller has to take the paperwork down. Again, where this big problem is this whole program of our pistol registration and people you selling your gun and selling to somebody else, me selling guns, there's mistakes. And years ago, you take your permit back down to the police department, you take your gun down there, and they would make a final check to make sure that the serial number's right, the make and model's right. You spelled your name right, and you think that's stupid, but that's what was going on. We dropped all that. So now if you make a mistake on filling out forms, big deal, because they never see the gun.
You look, if you look at this piece by piece by piece, you go, well, that's no big deal. Well, that's no big deal. That's no big deal. But I don't know. Glenn,
it's a feel-good program.
You and I want to take this conversation somewhere that I don't want to take it, but I like what you just said. It's a feel-good program, right?
Yep. And it's the bad part is that the gun that I'm selling, there's no checking to see if the gun's stolen. There's that guy that I'm buying from. Is it a legal gun? And now I have this great feeling that it is, because you got a purchase permit. And that's the feel good part of it, but it doesn't do nothing.
Yeah. Well, Glenn, this is I appreciate you shedding light on some of this stuff. The bigger picture is nothing you and I are going to solve, certainly in this limited time we have. In fact, I'm out of time and I got to let you go, but I always appreciate talking with you, and I appreciate your insight, Glenn.
The big thing, if people got questions, come on in. We have different forms that we can show you. But the biggest question is, do not get mad at gun shops because they're doing a background check, because they have to by federal law.
And be ready to fill out some forms. Glen Duncan, always a pleasure. Duncan's Outdoor Shop in Bay City, duncansoutdoor.com. That's duncansoutdoor.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, Justin Tomei of MUCC checks in. And then our third hour, we'll talk a little Southern Lake Michigan fishing and Dixie Dave as well. Coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us. Let's go to St. Joe, WSJM, 94.9 FM, and back north of the bridge, this time to Iron Mountain, WMIQ, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Why buy a bunch of different expensive sets of hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set and then snap on and zip on an outer shell of a different camo pattern in less than a minute and save yourself a bunch of money. Great quality products, windproof, waterproof, or I'll say wind resistant, water resistant. And if you're looking for big sizes, 4, 5, 6X, VersaSkins can help you out. The website, versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. While you are online, please check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And I would ask you to head over to MUCC.org as well. MUCC.org is the website, obviously, of MUCC, the Michigan United Conservation Clubs. Justin Tomei is with that group, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Justin, welcome back. Listen, remind me, your title is what?
Policy and Government Affairs Manager. So I'm our full-time policy staff and lobbyist.
That doesn't even sound like maybe that would be fun some days.
Some days it's not. I actually joke that I never wanted to do policy, but I'm a reformed political operative. But no, it is actually fun because I get paid to talk about woods and water and hunting and fishing all day, every day.
And what are the topics of discussion these days in your world?
Well, we have our annual convention coming up in a couple weeks, and one of the cool things about MUCC is that I actually, as our full-time policy guy, have zero say in what we talk about, what we discuss, what our policy positions are. And at our convention in the Sioux in a few weeks, our membership will get together and debate what our policy positions or what new policy positions we should take. We got everything from APRs on the agenda all the way down to tree stands on public land or trout designations on 4-mile stretches of the Osable River. So we go statewide all the way down to these little micro issues, and it makes us pretty unique.
I've always thought that was one of the more interesting pieces of MUCC. You know, you talk about grassroots organization. This is the perfect example of that. Any member of MUCC can come forward with something and bring it to be voted on. And then, as we've seen recently, once that is adopted as policy, you guys there that is in the decision-making roles, you base your decisions on the policies adopted maybe earlier.
Yep, our policy process is kind of absolute. If we don't have some policy on something, we flag it for a committee and they can draft some policy. But if we don't have policy or our policy says one thing, that is Amy and I's marching orders in Lansing, whether it's at the legislature or the NRC. And it is extremely unique. Not many other organizations do that. And the cool thing is that even if you're a member of a club like the Saginaw Conservation Club, you are a member of MUCC, and you can draft these policies and bring them forward. So you don't even have to be an individual member and pay the $35. If you're a member through your local Rod and Gun or Sportsman's Club, that counts as well.
So can any member come to this convention coming up?
Yep. Any member is welcome to come to convention. You can attend as a non-voting delegate. You just fill out your registration form and pay the registration fee. You won't be able to vote on the floor, but you still be able to get up there and come to microphone and provide your input on every single resolution, bylaw change, anything that we're doing on the floor. Any member is welcome to participate.
Okay, your phone cut out there. I want to make sure I understand. You would not be able to vote, but you would be able to comment.
Yes, you'd be able to come up to a microphone and you get up to 4 minutes on each policy resolution or bylaw change or any official action we're doing on the floor.
Listen, one other topic I want to talk about is something we discussed here last week on the show pretty much in depth, and this is the proposal or the concept to shorten the Michigan coyote hunting season. I know that was addressed last week at an NRC meeting, but it was not voted on yet, right?
Correct. The vote could be as early as the March, I think it's 14th meeting, the second Thursday in March. So that's the earliest they could take action on it. One commissioner is requesting an amendment to remove that change from the order and then just move ahead with the order with only the positive changes included.
Real quick, before I let you go, remind us, how does, you got DNR, you got NRC, and you have the state legislature. So how are things actually decided as far as our game laws, our fish and game laws?
Well, if MUCC was king of the world, all of our game management decisions would be handled at the NRC because they are bound by Proposal G to act with the best available science in mind. The legislature can and does get involved from time to time. And the problem with that is if they do, then things can be referred to a ballot where ballot box biology takes place, which is generally a bad thing. So the legislature has a role setting licenses, fees, things like that. But the actual game management decisions are best held at the NRC because they are as insulated as we can get from political pressures here in Lansing.
Can we even, in these days, can we ever get away from politics?
No, the commission's not perfect, but it takes 7 people rather than just one person getting an idea, dancing like we had with that bad commercial fishing legislation last year. So, no, it is not a perfect system, but I would argue that these 7 people bound by science would be a better system than going through our legislator where the winds can change on a day-to-day basis.
Gotcha, Justin. I got to let you go. Justin Tomei of MUCC, MUCC.org, MUCC.org. I think Justin's going to golf in our outing this summer with the funds to benefit MUCC's youth camp. More on that as we get closer to it. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Manistee, WTIQ 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the good folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoors men and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. And a reminder, the way the Ask Avery segment works. This is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. You can send me a question, something you want me to answer directly, or something you want me to pass along to the powers that be. The best way to get these to me is to send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. In fact, that is the best way to reach me for anything. I have a lot of people that want to send me social media messages, and I see a lot of those, and I respond to everyone I see, but I don't always see them because there are so many different social media messaging platforms that I just don't see them. Well, I take that back. The best way to get in touch with me is just to call me on my cell. No, I'm not giving you my cell number, but I will give you my email address. It's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's what Cliff Moran did. He says, Mike, I have a question for the Ask Avery part of the show. He says, I have a new gun I'm setting up for deer and predator hunting. I'm getting ready to start looking at my optics setup. My question is, why can't I legally use a laser for target acquisition? I can use a red dot. I can use a scope with lighted reticles. I can use, this is not part of his email, but he can use infrared. He can use night vision. He said, but from what I see in the hunting guide, a laser is not legal. In this day and age, when so many modern advances of things we use for hunting and fishing, why can't I have a laser on my gun to help take game? It's an interesting question, Cliff. I have not been able to find a definitive answer to this. Why can we not use lasers for hunting in Michigan? But I do have some thoughts. Regulations in this state are supposed to be guided everything by Proposal G, which calls for sound scientific wildlife management practices. I can't imagine that using a laser would be any more effective than using night vision or infrared. So why can't a laser be used? In this case, I'm going to say my perspective is it comes back to perception, the word that I hate, the optics of it. We've heard a lot about this lately in wildlife management in Michigan. It's the perception. We're worried about the perception, what could happen. I suspect that in this case, if we put hunters out there at night, or even during the daylight, using lasers that shoot a beam to the animal, that looks a lot like a war scenario, or it looks like a lot like a video game. Now, I realize when you've got a red dot scope is something, or a red dot sight is something, when you pick it up and you point it at the animal, you see a red dot, hence the term red dot. You see a red dot in your optic that points out the spot to aim at. But that red dot is not projected to the animal. So it doesn't go outside of the hunter and the critter. If you take an optic that projects a laser or a red or green beam out to that animal, then it starts to look more like a law enforcement situation, or certainly more like a military situation, or, God forbid, a video game. That is my best guess on this one, Cliff, because I can't find anything more definitive on that. Now, if anybody else can clarify this more, please send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, which is what Cliff did, Cliff Moran. So, Cliff, I appreciate that. I don't have a definitive answer for you other than the fact that I think we're looking at perception, perspective, and optics. Now, is that a good way to manage fish and game laws, wildlife conservation laws? That can be argued. That can be debated. For example, I have been saying the last several years that we need to, as hunters and anglers and shooters and trappers, to portray ourselves in the public eye as the good stewards of the resource and fish and game that we are. For example, when you post gruesome pictures, overly graphic pictures on social media, or when you talk about shooting a female coyote this time of year and, I took out the whole litter, I took out the whole batch of pups. It may be a true statement, but is it something that we want to do? Is it an image we want to portray? And it is unfortunate, but it's true that in today's world, where we are outnumbered by non-hunters and where social media is so... Is my time good, Charlie? We are so concerned about what's going on that we have to be concerned about these things, right? So, is it good? Is it true? I think so. Anyway, thank you, Cliff, for that. I appreciate it. If you have a question for me, send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, we're going to talk a little Lake Michigan salmon fishing and Dixie Dave in hour 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, Ken Hunter, thank you for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. And so glad to have you along with us. It is an interesting time of year, isn't it? I mean, you look at the calendar, it should be wintertime right now. But it really doesn't feel like it for the most part, at least. Although I did see, I mean, look, I got spring fever bad. I admit that. I did see with my own eyes my first skunk last week, so that was nice to see. Right? I didn't rely on pictures that other people had sent me. I saw my own. I love this time of year. In a lot of ways, it's kind of a slow time of year, but I love it because the anticipation of the springtime, at least in my mind, is getting pretty high. What I like to do when springtime gets here is a couple things. Turkey hunting. I absolutely love turkey hunting. I am so looking forward to turkey season. I find myself the last few days, last week even or so, kind of driving around the country roads, just looking at the edges of the fields, looking to see if I can see any birds out there. Deer all over the place right now because it seems like any deer in the section are out in the fields right now. They're all grouped up. They're herded together. But what I look forward to as well, and this is going to be a while off for me, is getting the Angler Quest out and getting it out on Saginaw Bay and doing some trolling for walleye. There are people out there right now. I just haven't been out there. I love trolling. These days, primarily for walleye. I used to be a big Lake Michigan guy. I spent a lot of time on Lake Michigan fishing for salmon and trout. That, to me, was more of a summertime adventure. But you know what? You can be out there right now. The southern part of the state, southern Lake Michigan, fires up early. In fact, right about this time of year. Russ Clark is a guy who knows this very well. Russ Clark is a charter captain out of St. Joe from Seahawk Charters. FishSeahawk.com is his website. And he's actually with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line to talk about this and much more. Russ, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing great. Russ, you've been out there on the water for a long time. Tell us a little bit about your history. How'd you get started in this?
Sure. Well, I went to college, graduated from Western Michigan University way back when, but I just loved fishing. I think I caught my first salmon when I was 5 years old, 1967. And I just told my dad, I said, I'd like to try this chartering thing for a little bit. And, it started with 1 year and then 2, and this would be going on my 40th year. So I can't say I really chased my college career, but I mean, every morning is just, waking up, going on the St. Joe River, Lake Michigan, just feel very fortunate and blessed to do that.
Does it ever get old, Russ? I mean, I always, people say, find what you love and it'll never be a job. But when you do it like you do day after day, does it get to be a grind sometimes?
Mike, I lost you for a minute.
Okay.
There.
All right, Russ, do you have me back? Are you on your Bluetooth, by the way? Russ, can you hear me at all? Charlie, let's...
Now I got you, Mike.
Okay.
For some reason, I lost you.
Yeah, are you on your Bluetooth of your truck right now?
Oh, boy.
Charlie, call him back, will you please? Hey, Charlie's going to call you back. Russ, hang tight. Charlie's going to give you a call back. And I think he's probably on his Bluetooth is what it sounds like, right? Going through his truck or whatever. Anyway, Charlie Rood here in the studio with me is going to give Russ a call back. Russ is a charter captain out of St. Joe. Seahawk Charters, FishSeahawk.com. That's FishSeahawk.com. I want to talk with Russ when we get him back on the line here about a couple things. Fishing the St. Joe River. That St. Joe is it's an interesting river. It's not a very deep river. It doesn't have a real shipping channel like some of the others do. And also about fishing southern Lake Michigan for primarily coho, but they also get some steelhead. They get some browns this time of year. And I think Charlie's got him lined up here right now. When I first found Russ, Paul Schlafly of Riverside Charters in Manistee, I said, Paul, I'm looking for somebody in the southern part of the state, down there around the St. Joe area. Who do you recommend? He said right away, Russ Clark. So Fish Seahawk Charters, FishSeahawk.com. That's FishSeahawk.com. Charlie, how we doing? Getting rid of the Bluetooth. Bluetooth is the bane of the show here. Oh, I think we dropped him again.
Yeah, hang on. Here we go.
All right, here we go. All right, Russ, let's try it again. How you doing?
Oh, good. Sorry about that, Mike.
Oh, that's so much better. I forget to tell people sometimes because, obviously driving down the road, we have to have this hands-free stuff, and it's so easy to talk in your vehicle through the vehicle. But when it comes to the radio conversation, it doesn't work out so well. So listen, Russ, 40 years you've been in the water?
I have been, yep.
Man. And my question was, I know it's a dream come true for a lot of people, but my question is, does it ever get old? I mean, you're out there day after day. Do you ever feel the grind?
You do, Mike. I mean, the biggest thing when you feel the grind is when fishing's tough, because, I mean, every charter boat captain guide, there's nothing more than what they want is to make their clients happy and catch them a lot of fish. So that's when it can be, tougher and frustrating.
And what do you do on those days when the fish just aren't cooperating? Like if I go out there and I'm on a fun trip, it's no big deal. It doesn't matter if I catch fish or not. But if you got people who are paying you and this is the trip they've been looking forward to for weeks, what mental process do you go through to flip things around if you can?
The biggest thing I know, Mike, is that, the people will see that I will do it 100%, and give it my all. And, but, when you're just dealing with the outdoors, nothing's, an exact science. I mean, most all the time we have good fishing, but there can be those days, that can be tougher.
And St. Joe is an interesting port. I fished out of there before. I got some good friends who live down there. It's a pretty cool fishery. You got the river and you got the big lake, and I think it's a great destination.
It is, Mike. As an overall fishery, it's hard to beat St. Joe. In the spring coming up, I'll be fishing on the river, this late February, March. But there's always that option of if the lake's calm, we'll sneak out on the lake, and we can most all the time get our limit of coho salmon, and that's a nearshore fishery. But it does have to be calm because it is in my river boat. But the one thing we're blessed out of St. Joe, the month of March, April, May, and June, we have 4 really strong months of salmon fishing on the southern part of the lake.
Well, and I like this coho fishery this time of year because, as you say, it can be on the right days a small boat fishery. You're not running far.
That's correct. You're within almost all the time 200 yards ashore.
Huh. And the coho,
and your water's going to be
the coho when you find them, they're usually pretty easy to catch, aren't they?
They are, and it's all topwater fishing, flat lines and boards, trolling body baits. And it usually when you get into a school, if you get one, you're going to get 7 or 8 on at once, most often.
Probably not going to be big fish though, right?
It will not be. Very good eating. Some of the best eating, I'd say, what we get out of Lake Michigan, but it's not a size thing.
So do you get Steelies, Browns, Lakers, the occasional king in there, or is it just playing too early?
You do. It's more random. You'll get a random brown trout, steelhead, and king lake trout. But, predominantly it's going to be coho salmon, but very often, we'll have one of those species mixed in.
So what are you running for baits this time of year for those coho?
Basically your brighter colors, your oranges, chartreuses, even darker colors can work, well too, in your purples and blues. But, predominantly it's the finfish, or Brad finfish is probably a go-to bait, day in, day out. They're very speed forgiving, and you can run them all speeds, and they're just hard to beat. But you could run the old school Rapalas or any body bait that's bright and it's your favorite. You can run those too.
We're talking with Captain Russ Clark of Seahawk Charters out of St. Joe. The website, fishseahawk.com. That's fishseahawk.com. Russ, I got to take a break, but I'd like to hold you on, and when we come back, talk a little bit about the fishing on the St. Joe River, and let's talk more about jumping out to the big lake as well, if you've got some time for me.
Sure do, Mike.
All right. Captain Russ Clark of Seahawk Charters, fishseahawk.com, fishseahawk.com. As I say, St. Joe is an interesting port. I've got some good friends. I used to fish with them quite a bit. They used to come up to Saginaw Bay and fish with me, and I would go down to St. Joe and fish the river and then head out into Lake Michigan early in the season like this after coho. And I remember trolling through those schools of coho. And like Russ says, you got one line that goes, they're all going to go. And don't expect a lot of fight, but you can expect a lot of action and some very good eating. as Russ said, there's not much better than a springtime coho out of that cold Lake Michigan water. So fishseahawk.com. That's fishseahawk.com. We'll talk more with Russ. And then at the end of the hour, if you've been with me before, you know I wrap up each week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. And we will do the same this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Holland on WHTC. That's 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. And you can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the LInwood Beach Marina and Campground. LInwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and a great place to call home for your Saginaw Bay adventures. They have a beautiful campground, a great ship store. Check them out online at LinwoodBeachMarina.com, LinwoodBeachMarina.com. And coming up Saturday, March 2nd, they're having a fishing show. What do they call it? Fishing conversation at Linwood Beach. Check them out online, LinwoodBeachMarina.com, LinwoodBeachMarina.com. Fishing show, I guess I would call it. We're talking now with Captain Russ Clark of Seahawk Charters in St. Joe. The website, fishseahawk.com, fishseahawk.com. Russ, if you had your druthers this time of year, would you be in the river or on the big lake?
Boy, Mike, that's a hard call because both can be a lot of fun. But I always try to put my clients where I feel like the best bang for their buck, where they're going to get the most action and the most fish, and if people are really dead and set on bigger fish, I mean, it's definitely going to be the steelhead in the river. If they want to walk away with a potential limit, which can happen on the river, but is more apt to happen on Lake Michigan.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That makes complete sense. You can go in the big water. You're going to probably going to get a bunch of fish, a bunch of good eating fish. You go up the river, you're more likely to have a battle with a nice steelhead. Do you hook anything else up there, Russ? And being a walleye guy, I'm thinking there must be some big walleye in that river this time of year too.
There is, but walleye is kind of a rarity on the river. There is some around, but it is predominantly steelhead with occasional brown trout. And this time of year on the river, especially the way our winters are getting milder, the fish start migrating towards the gravel and stuff sooner, as far as steelhead goes.
Sure.
On the river.
Speaking of steelhead, it was you guys in Michigan City. They got the Skamania years ago. Did that ever take off? Do you see those fish at all, or could you even tell if they're Skamania these days?
We do. We still get some, dropbacks still in the river in the spring, but our best Skamania fishery is in that month of June towards that 4th of July period of time. And, if the water flips, and gets cold by the pier heads and the river's warm, they'll stage right by the piers. And we actually last year fished Skamania steelhead in the lake boat for almost 2 weeks straight. And it was a really good fishery, and they are one very exciting fish to catch. They sometimes can be frustrating to land because they're good at getting off, but they are exciting to catch.
Where are you more likely to be found in the St. Joe, the lower stretch or up higher?
I'm pretty mobile. I trailer my boat, and my boat's a 24-foot Carolina skiff with the front end enclosed, and we have heat. So I'm kind of mobile. In the spring, I would say I'm more in the upper stretches of the river, more towards Berrien Springs, just because there's more gravel in that area. But I do go back and forth, and if it's high pressure, a lot of people, I'll drop back and fish the lower too.
Does the St. Joe get a lot of pressure? Is it going to see the number of people that say the Manistee is going to see?
I would say maybe not quite that bad like during salmon season, Manistee gets, but it's definitely a very popular river. So weekends on Fridays, you're going to have pressure. There's quite a few guides. So like any other place you fish, it's a chess game trying to get to the best spot.
And I find it interesting, too, because if you go upstream, you're going to be more out in the middle of nowhere. If you fish downstream in town, I mean, it's an urban fishery. You could very well be fishing right in town and catching fish.
You can. But I would say most of the river is more wilderness area, but, of course, if you're by the dam, it's not. Or if you're not more towards St. Joe, it's not. But most of it, there isn't, a lot of houses or anything along the river.
And how are you fishing those steelhead this time of year, Russ?
You're fishing, spawn, chunk spawn bags, plugs, bobber and spawn bags. So there's several methods in the way that you can fish them. Sometimes you're sitting still anchored. Sometimes you're what we call slipping or back trolling with all plugs. So there's really, quite a few different techniques.
Does that depend in part sometimes on your clients? Like if you've got people who just are not used to fishing, isn't it easier just to put some plugs off the back of the boat and back down through the holes?
It is. That is an easier way because, that steelhead's just going to hammer that plug rod, and basically this client needs to run and grab it and reel them in. Just don't set the hook. Just the fish will be hooked, and just bring them in.
Yeah, I think the Bassmasters tour and the Bass TV shows for that. Sometimes people, they say they're thinking they got to set the hook like one of these bass guys. No, these fish are hooked or they're not, right?
They are, and and it's people that haven't seen, it's a very explosive hit on the plug. The rod will hammer over, so it's the initial what people really want to do is yank and set that hook, but sometimes I really got to coach them not to do that.
Where do your clients come from? I would think where you are, you get a lot of Chicago people.
I do. A lot of Chicago, but also get, people from the east side, Detroit area, and then actually, the Ohio, Indiana, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Columbus, kind of come from various stretches, really.
So let's jump out of the river. Let's go back out to the big lake. The southern end of the lake is different from up north. For one thing, you don't have the depth and you don't have the structure for the most part, right?
We don't. We have, get started about the first week of April on my lake boat, and that's a 36-foot Tierra. And, we'll start along the beach catching coho, occasional kings, and then as the season progresses more around that end of April, month of May, into June, we'll catch a lot of kings mixed with coho. Then the end of April, May, we could be fishing anywhere from 80, 100 foot all the way out to 250. So, we definitely do fish offshore more. And one thing that's kind of different, a lot of times the water temperature is the same up and down. So you could catch a king on a surface line out in that 150, 200 foot, and the next one could come 150 down. So we run a lot of rods in the spring on the lake, and we use a very diverse, widespread fishery trying to cover all the water columns.
You mentioned Tierra. That's a very popular boat in your part of the state. Weren't they, or aren't they still made around there somewhere?
They were. Still are. It's based out of Holland, and one thing the boat makes an awesome fishing platform because it's got a 14-foot beam, so it's 14 wide, and you just really have a big, wide back deck to fish.
Yeah, the beam of a boat really affects the fishability or the amount of room more than the length, for sure, doesn't it?
It does. And then actually I had a heating system put in, so I have heat inside the cabin, run off the motors. So, it's always can be a little cool in the spring on the lake. So that always helps.
So when I was down there years ago fishing coho, we were going to the power plant discharge. That plant is now offline, isn't it?
No, it's actually still running.
It is.
But the one thing about it is now, since 9/11, you can't get in super tight, but you still get the offshore flow of the warmer water, and it's still a great spot to fish, But we get a lot of fish up and down the shoreline as well. So it's not really the only game in town. You know, the pier heads with the river water has, you know, a lot of nutrients, warmer water that draws fish, and then just up and down the shoreline. But so there's several places that we can fish.
So this time of year, are you looking for the color of the water or the temp, or both?
That's both. You know, any Lake Michigan fishing, any change, you know, and it's surface change, usually slick, water temperature, water clarity, you know, that's our structure in Lake Michigan. We don't have the bottom structure as much. That's important, at least in southern Lake Michigan, but it's the surface structure is the key.
So will you, I think you mentioned this before, but I want to follow up. You don't get enough of a springtime brown fishery to, say, troll the troughs up by shore and target browns?
Not really, Mike. You know, we get the coho in those troughs. That's where we're fishing, is those troughs early spring. Then it's a random brown, but no, it's not a strong brown fishery, so you can't really just target them.
So you are fishing cohos right up on shore then?
You are, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
You know, and, you know, 8 to 10 foot of water.
So what are you running big skis off the sides or inline planers or what, Russ?
We're running inline planers. You know, and I set up on, you know, the riverboat would be 4 planer boards and 4 flat lines. You know, when we get the big boat out there, we might run 4 or 5 inline planers aside. So we'll really load it up then.
Well, it's got to be a lot of fun to get back out there in the springtime after being in the river or maybe even cooped up all winter long.
It is, Mike, because lots of fast action is exciting. You know, it's gets everybody's adrenaline going, you know, and, you know, you see one rod go and another go, you know, so it's very fun, you know, and we get a lot of spring kings. That late April, May, that is our king time in southern Lake Michigan, like it is up, you know, Ludington, Manistee, the northern ports, you know, in August.
Well, Russ, it sounds like a lot of fun. I would encourage people to check out your website, fishseahawk.com. That's fishseahawk.com. If they're looking for a springtime trolling trip or a steelhead trip on the St. Joe, Russ is your guy. Russ, always a pleasure. We'll talk again.
Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it, and good fishing to all out there.
And good fishing to you, Russ. Captain Russ Clark of Seahawk Charters out of St. Joe, fishseahawk.com. That's fishseahawk.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, well, a few more things I want to talk about as we kind of wrap up this week's show. And speaking of wrapping up, you know how I'm going to do that, right? Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. And recently, the last few weeks, I don't know why it took so long, I've been finally posting the recipes on the Facebook page, and you seem to like that. It's a lot easier to go to the Facebook page and get the recipe than it is replay the podcast, listen to the radio show. Anyway, lots more coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WMLQ in Manistee, 97.7 FM, going just down the coastline, WKBZ in Muskegon, 1090 AM. Jumping over to the other side of the state, you can hear us in Saginaw on WSGW AM and FM. That AM side is 790. The FM side is 100.5. I am in the studios of WSGW right now, but you know, during this 3 hours, I kind of take over this one small corner of the building, and I call it the Outdoor Magazine Radio Studio. And I got a logo behind me to prove it. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reader create an outdoor getaway in your backyard. This is the time of year to get on their radar for the springtime, to get your springtime projects firmed up. I've been talking to the folks at Reader about phase 2 of a landscaping project at our house, but also between now and then, the guys are coming over to do some dormant season pruning of the trees. They say this is a great time to prune your trees back because you can see the structure of the limb. You don't have leaves in the way. You can prune them now. I said, hey, make them nice and tight so when the springtime comes and we get them fleshed out, they'll look great. I've never done a project with Reader, and we've done several, never done a project where I was disappointed with the outcome or disappointed in the folks who came to the house to do the job. They're hardworking people, good quality people, very knowledgeable. I cannot recommend Reader enough. The website, readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. Okay, what else is on my list here? Our Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction, Saturday, March 2nd. Go to the website one.bidpal.net, O-N-E, one.bidpal.net/Trinity Monitor. Or if you go to my Facebook page, there's a QR code there you can scan that'll take you. It's an easy way to do it. Take you right to the website. You can get your tickets. We still have a few left. This is it's going to be a great event. I'm really looking forward to it. It is Saturday, March 2nd at the Great Hall in Midland. Doors open at 4:30. Dinner starts at 6 with a live auction at 7 o'clock or as close as we can make it to that. We've got some great food. We've got some great live auction items, including a bunch of really good hunting trips, everything from an African safari to a 3-day guided turkey hunt here in Michigan to a Michigan predator hunt to a bow hunt in Illinois, bear hunt. Oh, man, all kinds of good things. Fishing trips. We've got a Lake Michigan salmon fishing trip with Captain Paul Schlafly. Detroit River Walleye with Captain Mark Pananzak. We've got a Saginaw Bay trip with Captain Doug Ward. We've got a Saginaw Bay trip with me on the Angler Quest. We've got a UP brook trout fishing trip with the Bear Whisperer, Johnny Bowler. Michigan brand products for a year. I mean, we just got all kinds of great items. I'd love to have you join us. That's Saturday, March 2nd. For tickets, go to the website one.bidpal.net. That's one.bidpal.net. Or just go to my Facebook page and scan the QR code. Really looking forward to that. What else? We will do another Wednesday night live at the Lumberjack Restaurant, also coming up in March. Details on that as we get closer. Put Monday, July 29th on your summertime calendar for our golf outing to be held at the West Branch Country Club. Details on that. And then finally, too, speaking of events coming up and things I want you to consider being a part of, our bow hunt in Ohio is set for 1 week later this year, closer to the rut, October 21st through the 25th. This is with Bill Piles of Ohio Bow Hunting Outfitters, ohiobowhuntingoutfitters.com. I will be down there along with several of our other listeners. We do have openings for that still. This will be the third, possibly the fourth year we've been back down there. It's an awful lot of fun. If you have ever considered doing an out-of-state whitetail hunt, but you're not quite sure if it's something you want to do, you're a little bit nervous about it, I can recommend Bill and his operation, his family-run operation. I think so much of them, I'm going to be down there myself. So a lot of times when you're looking at an out-of-state adventure, you haven't done it before, it's nice to go with people that have been there before and nice to go with people that you know. Along that line, if you've ever considered an Ontario bear hunt, a Canadian bear hunt, August 15th, mid-August, I will be going back to Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters in White River, Ontario, Canada, to hunt with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. There are always openings for that trip. Well, I shouldn't say always. Ron St. Louis can usually fit people in. NorthernWildernessBearOutfitters.com. That's NorthernWildernessBearOutfitters.com. And I haven't given up on our great state of Michigan here. I hope to be bear hunting in September with the Bear Whisperer, Johnny Bowler, but that one's out of my hands. If I get the tag, I'm going hunting. If not, I'm waiting another year, and I hope I'm not waiting another year. What else? The website, Mike Avery Outdoors. The website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I also do social media stuff. I do live streams every Wednesday morning at 8:45 from the radio studio. I do Wednesday Night Live every Wednesday night, obviously, at 7 o'clock. So lots of things going on for you to, for you and I to stay in touch, for ways we can share information, share stories, ask questions, and just basically celebrate this outdoor heritage and tradition that many of us here in the great state of Michigan care so deeply about. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef Dixie Dave Minar right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. So glad to have you along with us. I do appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to spend some time with us here on the show. A lot of different things you could be doing, a lot of different things you could be listening to, a lot of different content you could be consuming. So the fact that you hear my voice means a lot to me, whether it's the podcast version of the show or the broadcast version. Thank you so very much. And if you have been with us before, you know I wrap up each week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, who just happens to be along with us once again. David, welcome back.
How's things going, Mike?
Well, they're going very well. Very well. How about you, David?
Real good. Couldn't complain at all.
And if you did, nobody'd listen anyway, right?
It's pretty much true.
David, I was thinking, I didn't know what you had for us this week. I was thinking, well, he might go with a late season small game recipe. He might go with a late winter fish recipe, and I don't really know. What do you have for us?
Well, we got a walleye with spinach and smoked fish, and this goes really good for big fish in the springtime, like when the fish are up in the river, the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it tastes really nice, and we did this for the show, of course.
Of course. And so listen, is this in the cookbook?
Yeah, page 28.
28. Okay, I will post that on the Facebook page, Dave.
Okay. How you been getting good comments on
Oh,
this,
yeah.
or?
I've had a lot of people say, Avery, I really appreciate you doing this. Thank you. And why didn't you do it before, you big dummy? And I don't have an answer to that.
I never even thought about it.
I didn't either.
A lot of recipes I did were not in the cookbook. I just happened to have them written down.
Well, let's. So this one's page 28. Again, I will post it, but don't let me take any more of your time. Walk us through it, please, Dave.
Okay, this is going to be for 4 portions. You need about anywhere from 8 to 10 ounces of boneless, skinless walleye fillets, 1 package of fresh spinach, cleaned, destemmed, and chopped. Or you could use frozen spinach too. It doesn't really matter. A medium onion diced up fine. 3 cloves of garlic diced fine. 3/4 of a jar of chicken gravy. Or if you wanted to thicken up some fish stock, you could boil the bones and strain it and then thicken that up with cornstarch. 1/2 cup of smoked fish. You could use about anything you wanted. Salmon or whatever fish you think. And about 1/2 pound of shrimp diced up. 2 to 3 ounces of heavy cream, 2 eggs beaten up well, a couple ounces of dry white wine, 1/2 bunch of scallions sliced pretty thin because you're going to top the fish with that. And you could use either mace, which is a derivative of a spice, and it brings out the flavor, especially with smoked fish, flour, and olive oil. So you're going to dredge the fish in flour, and then in the beaten up eggs, and then a small amount of olive oil in the fry pan. Place the fish with skin side up. So when you turn it over, the rib side is facing the diner. After you get it done, remove the fish, add the diced onions and the garlic, and saute it gently for just a couple minutes to break the flavor loose. Add the wine, boil down, reduce by about half. Add the chicken gravy, the mace, fresh pepper. Cook 2 to 3 minutes over a medium heat, and then add the spinach, the shrimp, and the smoked fish. Finish with heavy cream, and cook that down a little bit so it's to your desired thickness. And return the fish to the mixture and cook 3 to 5 minutes more, just till the fish is done. The fish is about 3/4 of the way cooked through anyways. You don't want to overcook it. Place the fish on a plate, spoon the sauce over the fish, and maybe serve with rice or your favorite pasta.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. It sounds excellent. And then when you put the shrimp in there, too, that put me over the top.
Right, we used to sell this at the restaurant. This was really a big hit, too.
Let's talk a little bit about cooking fish, though. You have always said you got to be careful and don't overcook it because, what, it continues to cook after you take it off the heat source?
Sure. Because you got the both sides are hot, and it continues to cook right through into the middle.
So
salmon is enough. Does the same thing. Salmon, once you get it about 3/4 of the way cooked, it'll finish cooking and be all the way done through.
So how do you know when fish is done?
Oh, well, you can take and look at it. You can separate it a little bit. If it's opaque and no clear color to it, it's done. But if it looks like it's kind of raw, take that fork and pull it a little apart and then check it that way. Or you can take your hand, and then if you push on the part by your thumb, and if it has a little bit of firmness to it, and then check your fish the same way, then it should be done.
So a lot of it's just experience.
Correct. Most people are going to take a fork and pull it apart just a little bit to make sure that it's done.
David, always a pleasure. I'll look forward to your recipe for next week. And again, this is page 28 on the cookbook, and it will be posted on my Facebook page. Have a good week, buddy.
We'll see you soon, Michael.
I look forward to it. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show for sure. But you know what? You are too. Because if you weren't listening, you weren't following me on social media, watching the posts or whatever, there'd be no reason for me to do this. There'd be no reason for Dave to come on the show. There'd be no reason for me to get the guest for the 3-hour show each week. And then I don't know what I would do. I can't imagine myself as being retired. I can't. My plans and God's plans are not always the same, but I can't imagine it. And as long as you're listening, I will keep. I'll keep doing this show each week here behind the microphone, and I do certainly appreciate it.